Hello there, everybody. This is Chris P with Rush Coach Development Webinar. Today, our special guest speaker is Richard Shorter from Non-Perfect Dad. Richard, we're so honored and pleased to have you. Welcome. Happy New Year.
Mate, it's a privilege to be here. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to everybody. Good to see you today.
Yeah, thank you. And Richard, we're really happy to have you on. Our core value this month is leadership. So I think you are one of the leaders, of course, in parent engagement and parent education. So we're honored and blessed to have you on. Tell us a little bit about you and your journey, Richard.
Well, mate, firstly, I love technology, don't you? Just being able to hang out with you guys in America today makes it so much easier, and it is just a real privilege to be here. So my journey, I'm in my early 40s. I started life as a youth worker. I did a degree in youth work, worked primarily in the church world. Ran a skate park, thought I was pretty cool. My kids don't think I'm cool, but I tell them I ran a skate park. It must make me cool. And I noticed that kids went home after spending the afternoon or evening skating with us. And I noticed at home, and it's not rocket science, is it? But as a young 20-year-old, I wanted to change the world. I wanted to radically help young people from all sorts of backgrounds. And I noticed that home had a far bigger influence than me, and I thought we were doing some pretty good youth work. In fact, we were doing some pretty good youth work, but home either turbocharged what we were doing, or rather we turbocharged what home were doing when it was good and effective, or home was really undermining and destroying the influence that we were having at the skate park. Now, of course, there are kids who came from really difficult backgrounds who still managed to take what we were talking about at the skate park and have gone on to do really, really well despite their home background. But in my early 20s, I was really challenged to be thinking about how do we influence the home environment and how do we connect with the home environment, because they have so much positive power, and to see young people's potential grow and flourish. And so I carried on doing that. I've lived in some deprived areas. I'm now a church minister, and I do that part-time. And I also do Non-Perfect Dad part-time. And the aim of Non-Perfect Dad is really in the sports world, particularly in the professional elite sports world, to help organizations and parents connect together better, because organizations want to see kids' potential shine. I want to see kids' potential shine. And I think if we're all being honest, everybody knows there isn't an A, B, C, D to getting a kid who's playing professional sport or representing their country or being an Olympic gold medalist or playing in the Premiership or whatever the top league of their sport is. And if I said to you today, oh, I could promise parents that if they followed this plan, their kid would be this, you'd be like, that's a load of rubbish, Rich. And all of us parents know that there is this potential we see in our kids, but the conversations we have with our kids, the interactions we have with our kids sometimes help grow that potential. And sometimes, if we're honest, hence the Non-Perfect Dad name, my interactions with my kids don't help their potential grow. I stuff it up. I'm too busy. I'm not as present as I could be. And so what I want to do through Non-Perfect Dad, for what I am doing, is helping organizations, so coaches, institutions, great people like yourself, work out how to help parents release that potential, and how parents and coaches can be on the same page together. Because ultimately, when I talk to great coaches and I talk to good parents, they're all saying, flipping it, we get this kid for a short period of time, and then they're adults, and we just want to do our bit in seeing their potential grow. And for a very, very few, that might equal household name professional sport, but the potential that the kids can get from sport will impact their employment, their partners. I mean, we have a famous TV program in both countries, don't we, called The Apprentice, and I sometimes watch The British Apprentice. It does my head in, but I often challenge parents, what would your child get fired for on The Apprentice? Because you think about those young people who go on The Apprentice, they're kind of early 20s, and no one's perfect at that age, but they all have these over-the-top accentuated character flaws which make great boardroom battling. And I just think those young people also had loads of potential, and I wonder if their parents and those adults around them had coached that potential to avoid that kind of getting sacked in your early 20s for a character flaw. And that's what I think about my kids. Where would my kids get fired on The Apprentice if they went on today? That's where I'm going to work, because they've got all these great qualities that I would want the world to see. And they're not going to be perfect in their 20s. They're still going to have fireable qualities. So that's what I'm about, Chris.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I think, you said a few things there. You said that you thought you were cool, but your kids didn't, but you worked in a skate park, as well as, working through the church. Um, Two things that resonated there with me, Rich, is trying to be the conduit and the connection on how do we connect parents in the sports world and have children develop character within sport, but also within life. And then the other thing is how the home life can essentially undermine or accelerate the influence that coaches can have, you know, on
Yeah, totally.
so, and we'll, you know, obviously get into that as well. But, you know, I do know that you have a degree in community and youth studies and theology. So you only have the 2 degrees, not the 3. Is that correct? But you have the 3 degrees
No, I've only
album.
got 2 degrees. Yeah, I've got 3.
Do you have the 3 degrees CD or vinyl?
No, I don't. No, I don't. No, yeah, my first degree was in youth and community studies, and second degree was in theology. So that doesn't
Yeah.
help hugely in the sports world. That may be some of the pastoral reflections, but yes.
Yeah, but I think it does help. I think you've done a great job, and you do a great job of how you link that, right? And how you get the community behind the team in essential, right?
Oh, totally.
And then I see that you have diplomas in life coaching, facilitator for strengthening families and communities, which I think is huge, and you know, which is something you've obviously tied into Non-Perfect Dad as well. And you say you're doing both part-time as the church mister and Non-Perfect Dad. However, you know, is there anything part-time really in reality with the time that we dedicate to things?
No, I mean, I'm a very fortunate man, Chris. You know, both jobs fuel into each other. Both jobs are about developing people. They're both jobs about helping people thrive in their context. So, if I go and see a great sports psychologist speak, I'm often thinking, oh, that'll work really well at church. That'll help me support people in our church community. We work in quite a deprived church community, so my life is really broad. Because I work in some of the top professional sports teams in the UK, as well as some of the top independent schools. So I go from kind of rags to riches every week in the context that I embody. And you know what, mate? I find that people are people.
Yeah.
And I find all institutions, it'd be great to kind of get some, you know, I see we've got the chat room open. I mean, what's exciting people in the room at the moment? How many people we've got? About 15, 16 people. It's great to see you all. What potential do you want to grow in kids? Let's just throw that out. What potential do you want to grow in kids? Because when I listen to people who are at perhaps the more upper end of British society, the la-di-da people, and just, you know, everybody in between, I hear similar kind of character traits that they want to kind of develop through people. So if you're about, just pop in the chat room, what areas of potential do you want to grow in kids as you coach or as you parent them? Let's see what people come up with as we carry on chatting.
Yeah, so for me, you know, and we'll get the attendees to type in the chat room, and we'll bring that up or in the questions. For me, you know, as a parent and as a coach, I want kids to have grit and resilience. However, sometimes as parents and coaches, we're very quick to take away the problem from the children, so therefore not giving them a chance to develop the characteristics of grit and resilience, right?
Mate, totally. And I think, look, we live in a really pressured world, and I think parents have a tough ask. It's a great privilege being a parent, but you know, we've got schools who are putting loads of pressure on us. We've got our own pride and self-esteem that's putting pressure on us. Our family history, and our children's sports institutions are all saying, you know, do this, do this, do this, do this. And we live in a society that really isn't very tolerant of failure or mistakes. We live in a society that likes to kind of squash people for that. So and on top of that, no one likes to see their child in pain. I don't like to see my children in pain. And if we're going to let them fail and stumble and kind of struggle to work out problems, we're gonna have to get used to seeing them feel uncomfortable, and that makes me feel uncomfortable when my kids are uncomfortable. And I think the challenge for us parents is to sit with that discomfort and help them scaffold a solution around whatever they're doing. And you know, the amazing job about being a parent, Chris, is that we are never selective. So in the sports environment, you as a coach, every coach always has a selective edge to their relationship with children. Whereas we never have, as parents, a selective edge to our relationship. It's why when parent and coach work really well together, we can help our kids through those challenges, particularly selection challenges, because because we're there as a shoulder to cry on, a support network, but we're not there to take all the pain away, nor are we there to solve all the solutions. But I do understand why people rush to that. It's a natural human response. And I must be honest, some parents just are like, tough, deal with it yourselves. So they're tough, deal with it themselves is equally making a child completely independent is completely unhealthy. I often share the analogy, imagine your kids practicing soccer in the back garden, and I don't know if do you have greenhouses in America? In the UK, we have these kind of like green.
Yeah.
There are. So for those that in the UK,
but not very common.
In the UK, people. My granddad was really into his gardening, and he erected this glass house, a greenhouse, where he would keep his plants when they were young. And you can just imagine the scenario of a kid kicking a soccer ball from his back garden accidentally into next door's back garden and smashing through the greenhouse. And the kid comes to you and says, "Mum and Dad, I've just broken next door. I've just broken Fred's greenhouse. What do I do?" So the sort of parent that you talked about will go, "Oh, don't worry about it. It was just an accident. I'll go and see Fred and I'll sort it." So that's making the child codependent on you, and that is smoothing out all the problems, right? The independent parent would be like, "Well, it's your fault. You did it. Go and sort it out." Okay. Whereas an interdependent parent might be like, "Okay, well, let's talk about this. What do you think should happen now?" "Oh, I'm really scared. I can't talk to Fred. Fred's got a massive dog that's going to eat me. And Fred always shouts at us for doing football." "Yeah, but you did break their window. So do you not need to take responsibility for that?" "Okay, so how can you do that?" "Oh, Mum and Dad, you go do it." No. You take responsibility, but how can I make you feel safe?" "Well, can you come with me?" "Yeah, of course I can, but I'm not doing the talking." "Oh, but what am I going to say?" "Okay, well, let's role play that then. I'll be Fred in a mood. How dare you break my window?" You respond to me, "Oh, Mr. Jones, I'm really sorry. It was just an accident. I'll pay for it." "What do you mean you're going to pay for it? Have you got the pocket money now?" "No, I haven't got the pocket money. Can I do jobs for you?" Or so I would see that as a really healthy conversation from a parent that's saying, "Yeah, look, you made a mistake, but I'm going to help you scaffold a solution around this. I'm not going to make you just solve it, because just to send a kid to knock on Fred's front door if Fred is Fred could be a lovely neighbour, in which case I would want to go. If it was a lovely neighbour, I definitely want to go with my kid, because I don't want Fred to go, "Don't worry about it." I want to go, "No, Fred, he needs, or she needs to pay for that. They need to take responsibility." I want to make sure that Fred doesn't make it too easy and wipe away the pain. But also, if Fred is a horrible neighbour, I want to go and I want to stand behind my child as a supportive network, but I don't want to take the issue away from them.
Yeah, and just to relate that to the sports world, or the coaching realms that we're in, a child is missing practice. Well, hey, you communicate with your coach, whether it's with a phone call with me standing next to you, and let them know why. Let them know that you haven't done your homework, and give them chances for those opportunities, right? To do that. So we do have a couple of things in the chat room. It says, this is Damien.
Cool.
He says, "I want to develop a child's confidence and the ability to properly communicate with others."
Cool. That's pretty cool.
From John
and
Adamson.
I think ties it.
No, carry on. Sorry, Rich. No. After you.
Well, I think that communicating with others, relating to others, is one of the top skills that sport gives our kids an opportunity to do, because it's hopefully it's almost always completely fun, but there is an element of pressure to it, and learning to communicate in pressured moments is a really, really important thing. Learning to listen in pressured moments, learning to have a voice in pressured moments. When you hear what the top sports teams do in pressured moments, you realize that they have worked very, very hard on developing and refining those skills of feedback, of listening, of honesty, of integrity, of knowing when to say something and knowing when to shut up. I've got a 15-year-old lad, and part of his problem is knowing when to stop cracking jokes and when to crack it. And there's and he has that across life, and as well as on the sports pitch. And so it's just helping him reflect on that, when is really appropriate to help support that and not. And what the coach can be doing is, if was that gentleman a coach? I can't remember, but what coaches can be doing is they can be deliberately. Damien's a coach, can be doing two things. One is you can be obviously deliberately set up scenarios for your kids to chat about. So I did some stuff with the England under-18 hockey team, field hockey team, recently, and all their coaches stole their players' sticks 5 minutes before the game, just to put the players on before an international match. They stole their sticks just to put them under real pressure. Oh no, we've lost our sticks. What are we going to do? And just so you can create scenarios where kids have to communicate and work through that pressure moment. But what you can also do is be saying to parents, we're going to put them under pressure this week. We want to know, or we're deliberately going to try and antagonize a debate and a conversation. We're not going to be nasty, but we're going to deliberately try and find the differences in the group. Can you be having a conversation with your kid before or after about how do you deal with difference? How do you share difference? What's the best way of handling difference? What's the best way of having listening when someone disagrees with you? And Crumbs, let's be honest, our politicians all over that, you know, we could do with people in business and in public life who could do far better at being able to listen as well as speak their opinion. So that kind of whole integrity of being a great communicator and dealing with it is a mark of excellence in later on sports people. It's one of the marks that are identified by psychologists.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think that's huge. Damien follows up with another comment. He says, "This is brilliant. Preparing your child for the journey rather than preparing the journey for the child." So that was.
I missed that last bit. Preparing your child for the journey rather than
preparing the journey for the child.
Yeah, totally.
So,
well, you know, and actually sometimes, you know, and I do manufacture stuff, don't you? You manufacture parts of the journey so that they're ready for later on. But you're totally right. This is not smoothing the road out, smoothing the journey out. You know, and I think that's where parents and coaches need to be so clear with one another. So I went to a prep school. You know, the most important people at schools are receptionists. So I always try and get to schools early to talk to a receptionist or the administrator, you know, the office people, usually ladies in the UK. I'm guessing probably the same in America. And because they know the heartbeat of the school. I went to see this lady and she was surrounded by cricket kit. Now, cricket's a weird game us English people play, but it's a bit like it requires as much stuff as ice hockey to play. So and this lady was literally drowning in cricket bags, and I was like, "Oh, have they got a fixture today? Have they left all their kit here for a fixture?" She says, "No, this is all the kits that children left at home this morning that parents have brought in to school." And I was just like, "Blooming heck, that's really weird that this many parents have rescued the kids." And I was talking to the coaches later. I was like, "Have you made it clear to parents what will happen if their kids don't forget their kit? And have you kind of collaborated with parents around that?" Because often parents panic. "Oh no, what's going to happen if my kid doesn't have their kit? They're going to get detention. They're going to get in trouble. They're going to get dropped from the team. I don't want that to happen to my kid." Whereas actually, if parents and coaches are collaborating together, there aren't many coaches. Well, it depends. If you've got a clear defined, if you forget this and this is what's going to happen. But I know, like England under 18 teams, whose parents still pack their kids' stuff before they go away on a camp. Now, my children haven't packed their own bags for their holidays for like the last 3 or 4 years. You know, which meant once my eldest forgot his socks. He, you know, away for 2 weeks, he didn't have a single pair of socks with him. Thought he packed socks. He hadn't packed socks. Do you know what, Chris? The world didn't end. He learned a lesson. He'll never forget socks again. And if he does, well, he knows the world doesn't end and it's okay. But there's a great opportunity there between parent and coach to collaborate on what issues are going to come up in sport. And I think that's really important for each of your contexts as coaches to say, well, where are the big kind of wipe things away from parents? And I would say forgetting kit, packing kit, or those kind of, don't get me wrong, there are days when I pack my kids' kit because they come in from school and 2 minutes later they're off out to a club and then they don't get in late at night and then they're up first thing in the morning. So you know, I'm a parent. It's part of my role to be supportive and encouraging. So I never say never pack your kids' stuff because that's just a silly rule that you can find a reason to get around it. But I'm trying to say more times they pack their stuff than I do. And then also I think around selection and loss, some of the ways that parents try and smooth the journey out is they come up with like a scapegoat narrative. So, oh, it was the ref's fault, it was your coach's fault, it was your teammates' fault. You played brilliantly, but everybody else was rubbish, or it was the pitch's fault, or the wind was blowing in the wrong direction, or whatever the excuse is. Yeah. And again, I would want us to be working with parents to collaborate around actually when we lose, this is our narrative. Our narrative is we were beaten by a better team, or we were just unlucky, because we all know games sometimes go on the head of a coin. But what did we do to contribute to that? What could we change next time? Can we just accept, yeah, we lost today? Yeah, we lost. That's just one of those things. Or can we accept we lost and actually we could have influenced the outcome to be better? Can we accept we lost, but we played really well, and actually if we hadn't played really well, we would have got really thrashed? You know, it's like trying to not smooth out those moments. And coaches, you know, I see coaches do the same. By by making excuses. See a lot of coaches make excuses for kids when they lose, and also like the communication thing. And this is hard on kids, but I think sometimes we mollycoddle parents. We've got to give parents good communication. It's got to be done well. But if we've sent parents out 2 or 3 letters and we haven't had a response, that's the parents' choice to not kind of engage in that. Sometimes I feel like schools and clubs just do too much to try and sweep up those parents who are disengaged, and that then means you just get into lazy habits around discipline, about self-organizing, that kids then think, oh, it doesn't matter. So like, for example, my son's rugby club, there are 3 or 4 parents who never turn up on time with their kids for warm-up, never ever. So the coach, instead of having the courage to go and have, and I understand it's difficult, but the coach, instead of going to have the difficult conversation with those 3 parents and say, look, can I be honest, your kids always turn up late for warm-up, that's really disruptive. The coach puts the warm-up time half an hour earlier, so that everybody's there on time. Now my son is really, he's one of those kids who has to be 10 minutes early to everything. So I know the meet time is already half an hour earlier than it needs to be for 3 families, and now my son wants to get there for 15 minutes earlier. I resent that 45 minutes, Chris. Let me tell you, I resent that 40, because I'm like, this isn't for me, it isn't for my son. But we're mollycoddling parents here, and rather than having a good conversation with those parents and trying to work out what those issues are.
Yeah, why are they late? Are they late because their children are scrambling to pack their bags because they've not done it? Are they late because the kids playing a video game and the parents saying, hey, it's time to go? Or is it the parents thing? Right. So having that conversation. So just to jump on a couple of things there, you said Caleb forgot his socks, but in Caleb's defense, that's your son, when you were going on a beach holiday, so he didn't need socks, right?
We went to a beach holiday in Scotland. We went on a beach holiday in Scotland, mate. You need socks if you go on a beach holiday in Scotland.
Well, you need boots for the pebbles on the beaches, right?
You need boots. Oh no, the beach was beautiful and sandy, but it was cold.
Yeah. Well, Scotland usually is, right? Scotland usually is. And then the other thing was, after you, Rich, sorry.
No, I was just saying the most stunning country in the world, I think. Anyway, go on, Karen. I'm just fast. Go on, keep going.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I agree with you. Just as we were chatting yesterday on WhatsApp years ago, I can't remember what year it was, but we drove from Birmingham to Edinburgh for New Year's Eve, celebrated Hogmanay there, and then couldn't find a hotel, so drove back. And it was, people were like, are you crazy? Birmingham, Scotland, 600 miles, whatever. But 600 miles is a drop in the ocean in the US driving. Yeah, so just on the other thing, right, as you said, as parents and coaches, we often make excuses when the result has not been favorable. So, a couple of things that we do is we say it's winning and learning, not winning and losing. So winning and learning, not winning and losing. And the other thing we say is it's only a loss if we lose the lesson. So what did we learn from today? How can that change us? And that's we use that in our kids. And I have 3 boys, as you know. My middle boy, Anthony's very much like Caleb in certain ways, right? Not knowing when to stop or when to make the joke, kind of thing. But they had a heartbreaking loss in the last seconds of a state cup game, and his first reaction was he wanted to smash everything. And then we discussed, on the way home, not, hey, just think about how far you've got, how far you've come, what did we learn from it? Yes, it stings. Yes, it hurts. But I can see that your team and yourself won't be involved in conceding another goal that way in that manner, because of the hard lesson learned. So there's another one in from John Adamson, all the way from Wigan. So he's in England. So John, how are you for joining us? He says that he would like the children that he works with, the ability to feel comfortable to communicate their feelings and reason why they are acting up, so we can understand how to deal with them better. These are some of the characteristics.
Mate, so that gentleman's name was John, was it? Was it John?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I think that's a perpetual challenge. Firstly, I think it's great wisdom that you recognise that acting up is not usually the issue. There's usually an underlying issue. I think that's really hard for kids to communicate that. I think it's really hard for adults to communicate that sometimes, John. I think sometimes we don't quite know what is creating our behaviour to manifest it as it does, and particularly for children, depending on the ages. So I've got a 10-year-old. She came home from school the other day in an absolute foul mood. Everything was wrong. Everything was wrong. Wrong with her lunchbox, wrong with what we planned to do after school. I thought we planned a pretty fun activity. I hadn't picked her up from school for ages. I thought we'd sorted that out. But it took half an hour for her to get around to tell me the issue, which was she'd fallen out with her mates that day. That, you know, if one of my kids would have come out of school and just said that straight away, I've fallen out with my friends, so it feels like this, you know, because they're just very open. But the other one, it just, everything was wrong with the world. And for once in my parenting life, I just let her be angry and whatever. And I'm glad I did, because it kind of that gave her the permission to do that. I think what's really important in that, John, is helping, again, both coaches and parents have conversations which recognize that it's helping kids say, listen, there's something niggling you here. There's something going on, and we're just going to give you the space to be you in that moment in a way that's respectful. And if that's angry, so a bit like your son wanting to smash things up. And, you know, sometimes if they want to go in the garden and smash up wood with an axe that's productive, you know, that's cool. Yeah, if you look, you're angry, you know, you can't quite put your finger on it, just go and do that. If it's, you know, if a kid does come to training in a steaming mood, they don't know why, it's like, well, just go and kick a ball against those markers for 10 minutes. Just go and smash. Come on, let's go and hit a ball as hard as we can, or just give them permission to let that kind of volcano come out, but in a way that is respectful to themselves, others, and the kind of the space that they're around them. And do you know what? Sometimes I don't think you will know exactly what's going on with them, but I think that's what's amazing about coaches. That's why I said at the beginning, parents are the most influential, but as a dad, I love the fact that my kids have a number of very significant adults in their lives, because they will talk to them more than they'll talk to me about certain stuff. They will feel safer talking to those adults than they will talking to me, because there's that, not what will mum or dad think, and I have to live with mum and dad with what they think. And I think, John, that's where just offering that consistent pastoral care, which I'm sure you're doing because you already pointed out that around that behaviour. I think the biggest challenge, because I run kids groups as well, I coach and I run kids groups for naughty kids, and well, they're not naughty kids, but they're kids at school.
Kids that act naughty.
So to my kids that act naughty. And it's sometimes, you know, sometimes difficult. You've got 16 kids in a room, there's 2 or 3 of you, and 2 are clearly having a bad day. It's sometimes very practically hard to get them aside and say, look, is this exercise, you know, what do you want to do in this space? Because you're clearly feeling unsettled. How can we help you re-engage quickly and feel connected? And, you know, sometimes we've had really successful conversations with that, and sometimes we just haven't. I really like emojis, so depending on what age you speak. So if I can't get kids to talk, I'll often get them to send using my phone, or if they've got a phone, just to send a WhatsApp message to someone they care about, or on my phone. So my wife gets lots of WhatsApp messages from me with just emojis on. Just say, like, just send my wife, just this is how you're feeling. Just pick 4 emojis for how you feel today, so that they can start to talk about that. Boys are a particularly challenge, I think, at certain ages. This, and that's fairly stereotypical, but that is my experience, that boys, not all, but generally find it harder to talk about this. I have a deck of cards from a board game called Compatibility. They're all picture cards. You can't get the right or wrong answer with them. And so I will, if a kid's upset, I'll get the picture boards out and I'll be like, what football team do you support? And they'll be like, West Ham, Man United, or whatever. And I'll be like, right, pick 3 cards that reflect Man United or West Ham, and they'll pick, you know, 3 cards. And then I'll be like, right, pick 3 cards that tell me how you're feeling today. Because you say, what's up? And they'll go, I don't know. But if you kind of give them emojis or pictures or whatever, sometimes that's, not always, but sometimes that can unlock a really good conversation. I noticed you picked the beach one. And you said you're upset. I'd love to go to the beach. What's going on? What's negative about the beach picture? Oh, because I'm on my own. Oh, okay, cool. Why do you feel on your own at the moment? You know, so you can have some really lovely conversations prompted by tools like that. And again, for me, the important bit between parents and coaches is scaffolding those conversations together.
I love that. We used to use emojis after training. Basically, it was like just a smiley face, normal face, smiley face, unhappy face. How was training? Go check, you know, how you felt about training. Just younger kids as way of feedback. So I think that's the thing. And I think the other thing is key that you've mentioned there, Richard, is just sometimes we're not going to know what's wrong, but we should know the children who are in front of us. So maybe it's taking the time from the walk from the car park to the field to connect with different kids, and just really getting to know them, which might give you a little bit more insight into what's going on. Is it, you know, are they coming from a 2-family home, for example, mum and dad are separated. Were they at dad's this week? They forgot the shorts because dad didn't do the laundry, or mum didn't send them, and stuff like that. So just important things to remember as well. Damien, again, from Missouri.
So just to scaffold into that, the two other tools you can use, which we use and try and encourage parents to use, the first is compliments. It blows me away, particularly with blokes groups, when we just deliberately get in a circle and we say, right, give each other a compliment. So when I'm coaching, part of the warm-up, it might use a ball. If it's a static group, I might just get them in a circle, but I'm like, right. So in football, I might go and pass someone the ball, and then run over to them and give them a compliment, and then go and get the ball off somebody else and get a compliment off someone else. So you are starting your session with, actually, I'm really pleased you're here. I'm really pleased you're here because of this. I'm really pleased you're here because of this. I'm really pleased you're here. I try and give everyone a high five or a fist pump at the start of my sessions, just so they have some physical contact, because I think that's really affirming. If they want to, they don't have to. But if that's really affirming. And then at the end of the session, we just do highs and lows. So 2 highs or 2 lows, or 1 high and 1 low, and nobody feeds back. No one criticizes why. So someone might say, a low, I didn't feel like I had the ball passed to me today. And no one's in the kids are allowed to go, yeah, you did, you had loads of balls, because that's their experience. As a coach, you might go, okay, we'll work on that next week. We'll talk about that next week. But just getting the kids to do highs and lows and affirming that. So that's taking the emoji thing particularly. But you know, the thing with compliments is I do it with like 10-year-old boys who are like, all think they're little gangsters, and I mean they're not, but you know, and the depth. So I think they're just going to say things like, I like your football team, I like your hair, I like your trainers. The depth that they go really, really quickly with compliments is unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. They nail it, and my challenge in that role is to try and get the parents doing that regularly at home. We try and do that at home. And you know, the siblings don't always like complimenting each other. It's sometimes a drag, but
yeah,
there we go. We do it.
Yeah, I like the way you're rocking those headphones.
Yeah, thank you. That's just to keep the sound working perfectly.
So Damien from Missouri again, he says, how do you respond to the parent that says development is fine, but if we are placing the best players on one team, they need to win, otherwise there's no point?
Oh, that's a great question. So help me understand that a little bit more. So they're putting the best players on one team, but they're not, and so winning should be. Yeah, I mean, Damien, you've just hit the nail on the head of probably the biggest tension in youth sport, and it's not just parent to coaches, because there are a ton of coaches who just think the aim of an under-7s team is to be champions, which is bonkers. But so Damien, I would say, so in the sessions I do with parents, I try and cover this a lot. And the first thing I would want to start to talk to that parent about particularly is about themselves. Tell me about your life. Tell me what you do as a job. And then depending on their job, I would want to talk about how highs and lows and how not winning in their job help them be better at their job, or help them be better in their life. Now, some aggressive parents won't take kindly to that. So this is where the job of the coach is really down to interpersonal relationships. So I'm not saying always do this. I'm just saying that's a way of doing it. I do in the sessions, I get parents to put their hands up, and I say, hands up here, whose biggest learning has come through failure or disappointment? Almost every parent's hand goes up. It's like, so why do we just celebrate winning? I think we have to recognize we live in a results-focused society. So, Facebook, I've never seen a parent on Facebook go, my kid's had an all right week. It's like, look, here's little Johnny, and here's a big trophy, and here's the big cup his team have won. I put a statement up on a screen which says, one team hasn't lost a game all year, one team has had mixed results, which team has learned more? And I get parents to shout the answer, and so, I could be in a room with 200 parents, and almost all of them will instantly go, mixed results. So, okay, that's interesting. But so we recognize that mixed results is better for development, but we still just want to win. And so I think sometimes we have to name that winning thing as an adult ego. I would be wanting to do a little bit of research with my players about why they play and what they get out of playing. And I would be very surprised if winning was in the top 3. It might be, but I would be very surprised if it is. So I would be then wanting to share with the parents, look, the kids don't come here to win, they come here to get X, Y, Z, which is developmental, things like that. Of course, a team that is developing should be winning sometimes. I mean, I know some teams, a new team might start and they might lose every game because they're just bonding and forming. But that is part of that developmental journey, is learning to win and lose. So that is an important part, although I recognize sometimes league structures don't let you you have the facility to do either. But I would, in your team meet, in your parents meeting at the beginning of the season, just have some fun with parents about why process is really, really important. I would try and map out famous players' journeys. So if you can get the biography of I'm assuming you're a soccer coach, but if you're not a soccer coach, it's someone else. But when you look at kind of some of the journeys and hurdles that some of the famous players have been through, and how they were dropped at certain ages, and how winning wasn't always part of what they did, then you can kind of have one of these kind of non-linear maps that say it isn't all smooth. I think, and this is a little bit brutal, and I'm more than happy to be challenged that I think sometimes we just have to accept that maybe our club isn't right for parents whose sole idea is just to win. Because there are plenty of football clubs, soccer clubs, rugby clubs, hockey clubs, golf clubs that just are factories for results. They're not going to produce the best players in the long term, nor are they going to produce the best people in the long term. But we have to accept that that's a parent's choice to choose an environment for their child that suits their cultural needs. And being winning focused is not an immoral option. I don't think it's a healthy option, but it's not immoral. And so that's the parent's choice, and we explain our position. I would also hammer at every opportunity the success of development. So one of the things that I think sports clubs miss out on is, yes, we let parents know the results, or we put it on our Twitter feed or Facebook page, but we very rarely talk about the development that's going on. We very rarely celebrate the development in those kids. We very rarely ask the kids, oh, you're working on this here in soccer, and that's developing resilience. Can you see where that is helping you elsewhere in schoolwork, or and getting the kids to feed, because kids are great at that. They'll recognize all that stuff, and then you just basically feed that into the parents. Parents get quite mushy about their children's own voice. So you as a coach could say, oh, they do it to have fun, but when the kids say, I want to have fun, and again, I might ask the kids, well, in my book, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, but the first question is, what do you want me to do what's the best thing I can do for you on this journey? And I think for me, it's about trying to help parents get the idea that once we've given them access to a good environment, it's really about the kids enjoying that environment and us just being a supportive presence in that, not driving that environment. So I'd want to try and help that kid have that conversation. So like this weekend, I'm going to a very posh school, a lovely posh school, and they've got the kids and the parents in the room together. And I'm going to get them to play that game. I think it's a TV show in America as well. You know, you ask kids a question about their parents and they write the answer down, and then the parents write down what they think the kids are going to say and things like that. But one of the questions I'm going to get the kids to answer is, why are your mum and dad proud of you? And when kids turn around to mum and dad and say, oh, you're proud of me when I win, when I get good results, when my girlfriend's pretty or whatever, most parents go, that's really shallow. Most parents, when they hear their kids say that, are like, actually, that isn't why I'm proud of you. That isn't, I'm proud of you because you're awesome. Your identity is more than winning. And so for me, if you can use the kid's voice in that process. So I'm going to have to handle that a little bit gently on Saturday, because there'll be mums and dads in the room. So I will do it quite playfully, and you know, because these are younger kids, there's always a chance to rate that right. But I'd be horrified if any of my children thought that I was proud of them because they were good at rugby, gymnastics, or drama, which is probably each of their three main things. But they're so tapestried as human beings, my kids, that I would hope that they never thought from me, if they stopped any of those things, that I would think any less of them as a human being. Yeah. Sorry, that's a long answer to that question. I hope that's helpful.
No, but that's a great answer, and you know, one that was needed. But there's a couple of things to unpack there. And I do know I am going to be cognitive of your time, and know that you've put this presentation together that you want to share, but just a couple of things to jump off there. So, you know, just acknowledging that parent may not be good enough, you may not be the club for that parent. So for example, Southwest Airlines, there's somebody complaining that, you know, that the flight attendants were messing around during the important part of takeoff, and, you know, wear your seatbelt low and round the hips like J Lo wears her trousers, for example. So they wrote to the CEO of Southwest, and the Southwest CEO's response to that was, dear Mrs. Such and Such, thank you for your complaint. We will miss you. Safe travels. So sometimes you've got to have the to be brave enough, right? to say that. And
do you know, mate, there are some clubs, there are some sport institutions that I would really like to work with, but they are results factories, and they see parents as the enemy, so they're not going to work with me, and that's a shame, because I like, you know, oh wow, I'd like to work with them, but I won't, because our values aren't aligned, you know, and I think, and that's difficult. We all want to be liked, and especially because we see kids in the middle of it, like, blooming heck, that's a kid. We want that kid to thrive, and that kid would thrive in our environment. But it's recognizing that is that parent's opportunity. It's tough, but I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think you spot on there, you know. And then the other things were, I really loved the idea of mapping out a famous player's journey. So, for example, basketball, everybody knows Michael Jordan was cut from his high school team twice, went on, you know, the Michael Jordan story exists. And then, you know, just to build on that as well is there's a guy called Bill Walsh, and he wrote a book called The Score Takes Care of Itself. So just really focusing on the process as opposed to the outcomes, I think is huge, right? So in America, and sometimes in England as well, you've mentioned that there's people who are very results driven, but I think we're in the races to the wrong finish lines. And can we have our victories with values? And you just brought up values. Are we willing to compromise our values just to get the W on game day? So, you know, these are other little things that we can think about as well. And then just thinking about which sports do a really good job of bringing out character traits. I think, you know, martial arts has been brilliant, right? As young boys, my boys did martial arts, and I thought that the discipline, the respect factor were really brought out within the martial arts. And I think we need more of that in football, soccer, as we say over here, to bring out those traits as well, you know, to bring out those traits. And then the final thing before we get into the presentation, or let you have the mic back and keep commenting, was the fact that you worked with England hockey at under 18s, and the coaches stole all the hockey sticks. I thought that was, I think it's brilliant, because now we've manufactured a situation that players have to deal with adversity. We've placed speed bumps in their development to see how they navigate, right? Instead of giving them, again, all the answers. However, very dangerous if you've done this and maybe not communicated with parents. So the key there was having, you know, letting parents know, hey, this is a speed bump week, just so you know. Here's some talking points for the way home or the way there, you know.
I mean, you make an excellent point there. I mean, that environment is, the coaches in that environment are so playful and so supportive that every parent, I would imagine, and I've done some work, I do quite a bit of work with the parents there, I would imagine that most of the parents whose children are in that environment understand the type of fun-based culture that the coaches have created. So they would know immediately. I don't know if they did communicate it. That's an interesting point. I need to go back and ask that, because that is a very interesting point. But if we are, I have a confidence that because of the type of culture that those coaches have created, the majority of parents wouldn't have panicked, because they would go, the coaches are involved in this. They're so creative. They're so playful. They're so supportive and stretching. But yeah, no, it's cool. Right, should we see if we can get this PowerPoint there a little bit?
Yeah, and then as you're pulling that up,
buttons for screen sharing.
As you're pulling that up, Rich, just to, you know, it's important to, again, know who's in front of you, know who you're dealing with, and just keeping that communication open and stuff like that. There was the book. We're going backwards. Pictures.
There's a bit. I know. I don't know what I did there. I mean, I think for me, just to share, I guess. Is there a weird box? Is the Go Webinar control panel on your screen as well?
I still have the screen as one of the presenters. But okay. We can see yours. We can see you as well. Yeah, let me see what they can see over here.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
We've had a question come in before you start. Rich, before you start, one more question. Is that okay? And this is from Mauricio Suarez. Mauricio, thanks for joining us. He says, how do you manage partners who think winning is the most important for kids at young ages under 12? Parents, I think it meant parents. How do you manage parents who think winning is the most important thing for kids at young ages under 12? And I think we answered that earlier, Rich, with, you know, how do we define Yeah. So Maurizio, if we need to
But
dig
but
back
maybe
into
but let's take that issue and let's just work around that, because for me, the reason I do parent engagement is because I want to give coaches more time and energy for athlete and child development. Yeah, and the reason I do parent engagement because I want better outcomes for children, basically. And so everything that I'm about, although I'm very for parents and very pro parents, is because I want to give young people better outcomes around those outcomes that you've just talked about, with young people. My favourite sports story is that of Katrina Douglas. She won the British Golf Open in the early 1980s as a young 21, 22-year-old. Her dad was significant in her sports journey, and sadly he died 3 months before she won the British Open, only a major open. She went on to play in the women's version of the Ryder Cup, but forgive me, I can't remember what that's called. And the reporters gathered around her and said, "Your dad, he'll be looking down on you and he'll be so proud of you right now, won't he?" And she turned around and kind of shocked the reporters and said, "No, he won't." And I'd have loved to have seen that, Chris. She went on to say, "My dad's pride was never affected by what I did. With a little white ball on freshly cut grass, my dad was always proud of me." And I think for me, that's just a massive kind of high benchmark of parenting. I'm sure if you ask my 3 children, do I reach that? I don't always. But for me, just that wonderful reminder that parents can give children the permission to go and play. That if home is a harbour, then athletes are more likely to go and explore and I think develop in the high performance environment at the top end of sport, but also at the grassroots end as well. They're just going to go and enjoy themselves and develop and take on those characteristics more. So all that I do is around helping parents who are already often doing great jobs at that, but just to enable their kids to thrive so that athletes and parents can work. So coaches and parents can work together to get better outcomes for young people. And most coaches I meet spend a lot of time and energy on parents. And wouldn't it be great if our parent engagement gave us better space and quality time for child development rather than kind of firefighting some of these issues? I'm going to skip past that tweet. I'm going to ask you this question, Chris, because we won't have time to do it. But just, Chris, say what you see. You remember that TV program Catchphrase from when we were kids? Say what we see. What's happening in this picture?
I see an elk crossing the road.
Can help. That's cool. So you're in America. In the UK, people say deer.
A deer, yeah. Well, it's a male elk. Right?
It's a male elk. It's a deer crossing the road, an elk crossing the road, which is fascinating, because would it not be more accurate to say it's a road crossing a wood? Because that wood and that deer habitat would have been there for a long time, and new asphalt road like that is a new addition to that environment. And yet, because we're humans, I mean, I made the same kind of judgment on the photo as well. We see what's our narrative and we see what's interrupting it. So we see the narrative of a deer interrupting our road narrative. And I think that's the challenge for both parents and coaches. Parents have a narrative around their child, which is different for different families, and like you've mentioned, the family who are separated. So for those parents, their road is focused on a different agenda to, say, the parent who's working 80 hours a week and the sports experience is the only thing they share with their kid a week, compared to the parent who has 5 or 6 children at different sport clubs on a Saturday and Sunday and is running around crazy trying to get them all to the same places. So parents have their eyes down on the road, and sometimes sport is just a deer in the road. And for coaches, their focus is on their coaching and their sports club, and rightly so, because they're fully involved in it and they give a lot to it. And as parents, we're very grateful for that. But it means that parents are sometimes a bit of a deer in the road for coaches as well, rather than us kind of taking a step back and seeing the kind of broader context of what's happening for both parents and coaches. And when we facilitate conversations that help us do that, we get better outcomes for young people. I'm going to skip past that. Just to say, I run an online free platform called Sports Parents Alliance. It's basically a space for parents to come and have discussions about how we feel potential for on and off the sports pitch. There are quite a few coaches in there. It's free to join. If you just Google that, Sports Parents Alliance, you'll find it pretty quickly. And I'd love to see you in there, because it's trying to kind of have those conversations. Look, there are my 3 Doesn't he love his doesn't he love his little sisters even? He can just share the love through them. But I do parent engagement, not because I'm a dad, although it gives me good stories to share because I'm often a poor dad. I do parent engagement because I've had this kind of 20-year experience. And we asked your coaches earlier on about their kids' next coach experience. And this is interesting for dealing with the winning issue. So let's kind of come on to that. Let's just do a quick little case study around the winning issue. I asked a bunch of parents, this is a rugby club, to give me 2 words to describe their child at their 40th birthday party. And as you can see, the majority of words here are character words. You know, even those parents who are dead set on an under 12 side winning, if you ask them what will your child be like at 40, most of them won't say a winner. They will, for some they will say that, but the majority of parents in your club will give out character words. So I don't know if you can see that. Some of these are quite funny actually.
Perfect.
But this is for a rugby club. Yeah, perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Jumps out. It jumps out.
Yeah, it does. So you know, you get whether that's someone bantering around or being serious, I don't know. But these are all done. Less smelly is in there. These are done anonymously, and this was about 100 parents, and then the app creates a word cloud for the most popular responses. And for me, if as coaches we can keep reminding parents, listen, we want to produce great young people through our systems, and you want to produce great young people. If we can make more noise about that, that will reduce the noise about winning and expectation management issues. Won't remove it, because those noises are always going to be there in parents' heads. I've had the privilege of doing some work for Manchester United. So I've asked their parents the same question. I work with their parents in smaller groups rather than bigger groups, so this is a small group. And look, here again, you know, winner jumps out there, but winner isn't the most popular word. Happy, successful, kind, funny, respectful, confident, a gentleman. You know, these are parents whose kids are at what is statistically the most successful academy in the world at the moment. For producing kind of first team players, and so, you know, these are families whose lives are very much likely to be changed by football and the income that Premiership football brings, and they still want good kids.
Yeah.
You know,
I did notice that one parent wanted their kid to be pissed on the.
I know. Well, that's their 40th birthday, so I just to make you. That was Manchester. We've got someone here from Wigan, so I need to be careful. But that was Manchester on Sunday morning, so I think it might be reflecting people the night before. For me, I just want you to imagine you're driving through a nice village. I don't know what happens in America, but in England, when you drive through villages, they're trying to do lots of things to reduce people's speed through doing that. So you know, you might have a speed camera there, but you'll have lots of other things, like there'll be a sign when you get into a village in England that says, "We welcome careful drivers." There will be a picture drawn by school children of children crossing the road to give you that nudge of emotion. Oh my word, there might be school children around. There'll be like speed bumps. You talked about speed bump in the road. There'll be speed bumps to slow people's driving down. When you leave the village, it will say thank you for driving carefully through. And what you have in that quick experience of driving through, well, hopefully not illegally quick, but on that experience of driving through the experience of driving through a village, you have a number of different ways of trying to influence your behavior, and they fit into a model that was developed by someone called Professor Jeff French, which is a hug, nudge, shove and smack model. And what we tend to do in sports worlds is we tend to focus on the nudge model, and the problem with that is that the people who look at behavior change say that nudging is not enough. And there's some stuff on my website linked to Professor Jeff French if you want to have a look at that. Nudging is not enough. What we need to be doing is we need to be having a tapestry of influence over behaviors. So I work with lots of schools and sports clubs, and I don't have a complete parent package because I don't believe that that's contextualized enough. What I do is I listen to sports coaches and I then help them design a package that does hug, nudge, shove, smack on the 2 or 3 behaviors that they most want to influence in their sporting parents. And it's different for different people. So this week alone, I've written 2 of these, and none of the behaviors are the same. They wouldn't be the behaviors I would pick because that's me and I'm not in their context, and that's different. They are behaviors that they are picking. And I, you know, I had my hair cut last week just for this webinar. No, I didn't. I just needed to do it. But you know, imagine if I sat at the hairdressers and just said, no, just cut my hair, do what you want with it. That's pretty risky, and I might not be happy with the outcome. But I could have no complaints about that because I wasn't specific and measurable in what I said to the person. And that's my fear about parent engagement at the moment, that we're having lots of nice ideas around communication and getting parents on board, but we're not really being specific about the individual behaviors we're trying to change, and we're not measuring them. So for example, you're just winning question, which comes up a lot, and so it's a great question. What I would do, and this is off the top of my head, so I would refine it a little bit, but I would, for hugs, okay, a hug is like, well, you can work it out, can't you? It's just saying thank you. It's being really encouraging. It's being really supportive. I would acknowledge that winning makes us feel good, and there's nothing wrong with the feeling of feeling good. Okay, and I would also acknowledge that parenting is it's the biggest delayed gratification task any of us will ever do if we're parents. Like, I often joke in my sessions, how do you know if you've been a good parent? Well, you don't until they've chosen your nursing home. So you work hard at just thanking the parents for their support, giving parents good meetings, not just one parents meeting at the beginning, because that's just a nudge. Then you give parents lots of information about why process is really important, that we've kind of talked about. Yeah. So that's the story of people like Michael Jordan and others. But you keep that fresh in people's memories. Okay. Then you do shove stuff. Now, shove is something that you cannot avoid. Okay. So I might get, and this would be a bit cheeky, but mid-season, I might give all the parents a card that says, I like it when we win, but I like it more when we XXX at football. Yeah. Okay, so you're deliberately getting the parents to write a card to their children saying, winning's good, but it's more important to me that you do this at football. Yeah, so that you are trying to get the parents to think about, okay, yeah, winning's okay, but how do we stretch the parents into writing to the kids? Getting the parents to write to the kids, or getting the kids to write to the parents, is really, really important. Another shove is getting the parents and children to have a conversation about why development is really important. So I might, and okay, my book's about questions to talk to parents, so you might nick a question out of the book, but also you say to parents, we'd like to have these conversations with kids this week, and every kid who can come back to us and give us your 2 developmental goals for their children will get a reward. Yeah. So what you're doing there is you're basically using the kids' development. Yeah, and parents don't want to hold back their kids' development, so more parents will join in with that than opt out, because even if they don't want to have a conversation about process, they want to be about winning, you're helping them do that. And then the kind of smack stuff, well, if you drive through a village too fast, you get a speed camera. Thinking about the winning stuff, I think it's okay to challenge parents who you've got to know about constantly going on about winning. So if I had a mum who came up to me and said all the time, oh, we want to be winning, what was the score? I might ban parents from asking each other what was the score for the first half hour after the game. I might say to a parent who's really keen on winning, listen, I know you're keen on winning, and that's okay, but I'm only going to let you ask me a question about that once a month. Yeah, because we are about process here. I'll put a very strong boundary in about that, playfully, not aggressively. And recognize, again, part of the smack is, well, maybe this club isn't for you. Yeah. If you're really that concerned about winning, maybe this club isn't for you. I'm going to do some work with a football team in Utah, which is really exciting. And one of the things they want is their parents to be shown more respect to the opposition, which I think is a lovely thing to do. So we've done this model around that, because I think actually if we can value the opposition, actually then we don't value winning quite as highly, because we see the opposition as human beings as well. And actually we want everybody to have a good experience, and we recognize that maybe they're just better than us, they deserved it more, whatever. And also under 12s, I mean, gosh, some kids' development, I mean, we've all seen the kids at under 12 who look like men or full-grown women, and they just dominate a football pitch, and that's just one of those things. If you've got one of those kids in your team, there's not much, or in your opposition, there's not much you can do about that. So that's just a really, really quick walk around that, Chris, because I'm conscious we need to finish. And I just want to say to people, whether you're a coach, if you're a coach and you've got something in your culture or environment or your team that you would like to talk to me more about this, please just drop me a line, give me an email. I'm going to give you my email address in a minute, because I love to work with people who want to move parents' behavior on to getting better outcomes for young people. And if you're a parent and you're thinking, actually, yes, I do want to grow potential in my kids, but I'm not quite sure how. Well, I'll tell you about the book in a minute, but the book, I mean, who reads a whole book and who puts into place a whole book? So, but again, get in touch with me. Tell me which bit of your child's potential you're wanting to develop at the moment, and we can talk together. You can come into Sports Parents Alliance. I'd love to have you there. I really want highly engaged parents who want to see their kids' potential develop. Just to let you know, these would be the top behaviours I would change. I would want parents to
Just
communicate
before
in
you
ways
get
which
into
are
that,
curious.
Rich,
Yeah,
let me interrupt
go
you
on.
for 1 second. Two things, just real quick. This is from Coach Deborah Scholes. Debbie's joining us from Arizona today, visiting for,
Hi,
the
Deb.
West Coast. And she's a former teacher, years and years of experience as a teacher,
Brilliant.
PE teacher and stuff like that. She says winning is not won by the person who scores the goal, but the team that produces the opportunity. So Deborah, thank you for your profound statement there. And then just another thing on that, Richard, as your email's up there. Obviously, the book is brilliant. It's a short book, very easy to read. 40 conversations for the journey home. And just on the little village thing, Richard,
Yeah.
you know, I had a fear of speed bumps, but I'm slowly going over them. So I just wanted to add that in. Thank you.
Very good dad joke, Chris.
Yeah.
That was
So
really
Richard,
the banter
that
tonight.
was
That's terrible.
Richard Cheatham.
So,
Thank you for that one.
yeah. That is. Oh, bless you.
That's
I would. So here are the three conversations I would talk about. I would map. So the work that I do, particularly in rugby, maps around these things. Communications which are curious. So rather than parents come up to coach and say, you got that wrong, coach, I'd want parents to be coming up to coach and going, help us understand this more. Because I think that makes a coach's life a lot easier. If parents are curious, and you can do hudge, nudge, smack, shove on that. I'm going to tell you how now because we don't have time. I would want parents. So this is really linked into what we're doing. Conversations which build character and mindset rather than process. So process rather than results focus. I think for me that's the biggest gift that coaches can give to kids by building that nudge, shove, hug, smack model around for parents. And then lastly, I want parents to realise that sport is subjective. You know, you could put 100 coaches, give them exactly the same team, and they would all do things differently. Yeah. And yes, of course, that's not for me justifying abusive behaviour, because of course it's subjective, and then there's behaviour that's just unacceptable. But within the realm of acceptable behaviour, it's subjective. And so my son's rugby coaches, do they do my head in sometimes? Yeah, they do. But they're great gents. They volunteer their time. I'm so chuffed my son's in that team. It's not how I would coach a side, but it isn't my job, and I haven't put my hand up to coach. They have. And so I accept that it's subjective. And sometimes I might sit down with them and go, I'm a bit curious about that. I'm not comfortable about this. Can you help me understand it? But I'm not there to say they've got it wrong, because they haven't got it wrong. They've got it differently to how I would do it. And that's a massive thing to try and help parents get. So there's the book, Conversations for Journey. You can get it on Amazon in America. If you read the whole thing through and email me, I'll send you a prize. That's a promise, because I don't think people read books like that anymore, Chris. And there's my email address. If you want to, honestly, if you want that nudge, hug, smack model to see that development and parent behaviour change, I do just need to say this: you will never get all the parents' behaviour changed, and nor will you ever deal with the 5% of parents who are really, 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 really hard work. Yeah. We lovingly fence that 5% with the hug, nudge, shove, smack model, but we do not ever get rid of them. They're always there. They are the bane of our lives, but we love them and we love the kids that they bring, and that's that. But we put firm boundaries in. So good parent engagement is not about the terrible 5%. Good parent engagement is about the 50% who are the quieter ones, who actually, with a bit of a support through hug, nudge, shove, smack model, will actually together partner to see the potential character traits grow in these young people. I'm going to finish there.
Well, a couple of things on that. Maybe we just have to bring you back for a part 2 to do the hug, nudge, shove, smack model, if you want to, and then we'll just finish up with if you still have a little time to go through the some one-worders.
Yeah, go on.
All right, so I'll ask you some questions. You get one-word answers, right? Ready? First one. It's going to require you to think, so I'm watching your facial expressions. Family.
Awesome.
Parent support.
Essential.
Parental support in sports. You can give the same answer. That's fine.
No. I'm just trying to think. What was the thing again? Say it again. Parental
So
support
parental
in
support
sports.
in sports, yeah.
Enriching. I'm going to go with enriching.
Enriching. Oh, I love that. Football.
I'm going to say not rugby, but I mean soccer. No, because we're talking
Soccer,
about football.
that works.
Yeah. I'm going to go with hair gel. I'm going to go with hair gel. I'm just going to stick with hair gel, mate. Look at that. You've got hair gel.
Hair gel.
I haven't because I'm thinning
Yeah.
out. You've got your hair gel.
Yeah. Defined, shared, and agreed upon expectations.
Utopic.
Oh, I love it. If I'm going to have to Google that, what that means. Conflict resolution.
Ooh, there's so much I want to say on that.
One word, Rich. One word.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed. Yeah.
That's not enough. That's not good enough.
No, that's again. That's going to be in part two when we. No, we'll do it in part two when we do hug, nudge, shove, and smack. Coaching.
Life changing. Is that one word if I put hyphen in?
Yes, that's okay. You can. Life changing. So, hey, what were you going to say on conflict resolution? I don't want to take that away from you.
I think so. I've been mediator trained. That sounds very professional, doesn't it? I'm not always sure I'm pretty good at it. But you know what? We are rubbish at it in the UK because we have a stiff upper lip. I reckon if I took the American caricature, forgive me, and do feel free to email me correctly, I reckon Americans are a lot better, a bit like the Northerners, at saying what the problem is, but I reckon we're still not good enough at being able to listen to one another. The problem with conflict resolution is that we've taught people that conflict resolution is about I have to compromise and you have to compromise, and that's the way forward. Actually, good conflict resolution lets you get a win and lets me get a win. So actually, good conflict resolution is about both people winning, but it's helping people find the win in the conflict for each other that's actually more essential. And we just so I would say as a coach, you should just say to parents, we're going to fall out. Listen, I've got your kids for so many hours a week. You love your kids. I love coaching your kids. We're talking about sport, which is the most subjective, emotional thing that our planet, other maybe than religion and politics, that our planet has. So we're going to fall out. We're going to not agree eye to eye. So this is how we are going to fall out right now, and we're going to practice it. And we're going to practice it. Our first parents' meeting, we're going to practice falling out because we just don't. We're not very good at going, yeah, we're going to fall out. And that's human. That's normal. That's totally okay. I love the fact that my kids fall out. No, I don't. I hate it. But what I have to do is I have to restrain myself from getting involved because they're learning to negotiate with one another, listen to one another. Instead of me going, you three, get on, sort it out. I have to just try and remember to just take a little bit of a backseat. And then if one of them steps over a value, gets physical or starts swearing or whatever, then I might step in and I might be like, whoa, this is not cool. But I think that learning how to negotiate that conflict, and again, I think it's essential for coaching kids. Anyway, that's enough for that. I need to go pick my kids up in a minute.
Yeah,
guys, thanks for joining me. You drop me an email. Let me know what was helpful for that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Richard. Thanks everybody for joining us. Goodbye. Happy New Year. And Richard, you were brilliant. I'll catch up on the WhatsApp with you, and we'll let you go. Part 2 coming soon. Thanks, Richard. Bye.
Mate, that was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. We're still on, but I'll end it and then I'll catch up with WhatsApp and let you grab your kids, all right?
Okay, cool.
You're a champion.
Yeah,
thank you.
Cheers, mate. Speak to you later. Bye.
Thanks. Brilliant. Bye.